I was supposed to propose to Margaret on Valentine's Day. The ring was in my pocket. The restaurant reservation was confirmed. The champagne was on ice. But when I walked into Le Bernardin at 7:15 that evening, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Margaret was already there. She was sitting at a corner table, candlelight flickering across her face. She was laughing. She was holding hands with someone. That someone was not me. It was Daniel. Daniel from her office. Daniel, who she always said was just a colleague. Daniel, who she claimed was nothing more than a work friend. They were feeding each other dessert. She was blushing. He was whispering something in her ear. She giggled like a schoolgirl. I stood frozen by the entrance, hidden behind a marble pillar. The hostess asked if I needed help. I shook my head. My hands were trembling. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might explode. I pulled out my phone and started recording. I captured everything. The way he touched her cheek. The way she leaned into him. The way they kissed. A long, slow, passionate kiss. The kind of kiss she used to give me. The kind of kiss that meant something. I watched for 10 minutes. Every second felt like an eternity. Every laugh from her table felt like a knife twisting in my gut. But here is the strange part. I did not cry. I did not scream. I did not storm over to their table and flip it. I stayed calm. Eerily calm. Because in that moment, standing behind that marble pillar with my phone recording their betrayal, I realized something. Margaret had no idea who I really was. She thought I was just Robert, the ordinary guy with an ordinary job. She had no clue about my family. No clue about my wealth. No clue about my power. And that was going to make what happened next so much sweeter. My name is Robert Ashford. To most people, I am nobody special. Just another face in the crowd. Just another guy trying to make it in New York City. But the truth is far more complicated. I am the only son of Richard Ashford, the founder and CEO of Ashford Technologies. My family is worth billions. With a B. We own tech patents that power half the smartphones in America. We have investments in real estate, biotechnology, aerospace engineering. My father built an empire from nothing. He started in a garage in 1978. By 2005, he was on the Forbes list. By 2015, he was in the top 50. Growing up, I had everything. Private schools. Luxury vacations. Cars that cost more than most people's houses. But I also had something else. Fake friends. People who only wanted to be around me because of my last name. Girls who only dated me because of my bank account. By the time I turned 25, I was exhausted. Exhausted from never knowing who genuinely cared about me. Exhausted from wondering if anyone would love me if I was just Robert, not Robert Ashford. So I made a decision. I changed my last name legally to Robert Morgan. Morgan was my mother's maiden name. I got a modest apartment in Brooklyn. I took a regular job at a marketing firm. Nothing fancy. Just a junior account manager position that paid $60,000 a year. I dressed like everyone else. I took the subway like everyone else. I lived like everyone else. My father thought I was crazy. He said I was wasting my potential. But he also understood. He had been poor once. He knew what it was like to be valued for who you are, not what you have. So he supported my decision. He set up a trust fund that I could access anytime. But I never touched it. I wanted to prove I could make it on my own. That is when I met Margaret. It was 2 years ago. I was at a coffee shop in Manhattan. She was in line ahead of me. She ordered a caramel macchiato with extra foam. When she reached for her wallet, she realized she had forgotten it. She looked panicked. The barista looked annoyed. I stepped forward and offered to pay. She turned to look at me. And I swear, time stopped. She had the most beautiful brown eyes I had ever seen. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun. She was wearing a simple blue dress. No makeup. No jewelry. Just natural beauty. She smiled and said, "Thank you." I said it was no problem. She insisted on paying me back. I said she could buy me coffee next time. She laughed and said, "Deal." We exchanged numbers. That next time turned into a first date. Then a second date. Then a third. Within 3 months, we were officially together. Margaret worked as a marketing coordinator at a mid-sized advertising agency. She was ambitious. She was driven. She talked about climbing the corporate ladder. She talked about making a name for herself. She talked about buying her own apartment one day. I loved that about her. She was not looking for a handout. She was not looking for someone to take care of her. She wanted to build her own success. At least, that is what I thought. For 2 years. We were happy. Or so I believed. We spent weekends exploring the city. We cooked dinner together in my tiny Brooklyn kitchen. We watched old movies on my worn-out couch. We talked about the future. About marriage. About kids. About growing old together. I introduced her to my father as Robert Morgan, a friend from work. My father played along. He did not reveal who I really was. Margaret had no idea she was having dinner with one of the richest men in America. She treated him like any other person. She was polite. She was respectful. She asked him about his life. My father later told me he liked her. He said she seemed genuine. He said she seemed like a good match for me. I agreed. I thought I had finally found someone who loved me for me. Someone who did not care about money or status. Someone who just wanted to be with Robert. Not Robert Ashford. Just Robert. So I started planning. I bought a ring. A beautiful diamond ring that cost 3 months of my salary. Not my real salary. My $60,000 a year salary. I wanted it to be meaningful. I wanted it to represent the life we were building together. A life based on love, not money. I planned to propose on Valentine's Day. Our 2-year anniversary. I made a reservation at Le Bernardin. It was expensive, but I had been saving. I told Margaret to dress up. I told her I had a surprise. She seemed excited. She kissed me and said she could not wait. But then, 3 days before Valentine's Day, something changed. Margaret started acting distant. She was always on her phone. She was always texting someone. When I asked who, she said it was just work stuff. She started coming home late. She said her boss was demanding. She said there was a big project. She said she needed to put in extra hours. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? I trusted her. But then Valentine's Day arrived. I texted her in the morning. Happy Valentine's Day. I can't wait for tonight. She replied hours later. Me too. See you at 8. But the reservation was for 7:30. I texted back. I thought we said 7:30. She replied. Oh right. Sorry. 7:30. See you there. Something felt off. But I pushed the feeling aside. I put on my best suit. I put the ring box in my pocket. I took the subway to Manhattan. I arrived at Le Bernardin at 7:15. I wanted to be early. I wanted everything to be perfect. But when I walked in, I saw her. And she was not alone. I could not believe what I was seeing. Margaret was sitting at a table meant for 2. But the person across from her was not me. It was Daniel. Daniel Crawford. I had met him once before at Margaret's office holiday party. He was tall, good-looking, and worked in the same department as Margaret. When I met him, he had given me a firm handshake and a wide smile. He said Margaret talked about me all the time. He said I was a lucky guy. I agreed. I thought I was lucky. But now, watching them together, I realized how wrong I had been. They were sitting close. Too close. Daniel had his hand on hers. She was not pulling away. She was leaning in. The waiter brought them wine. They clinked glasses. They toasted to something. I could not hear what they were saying from where I stood. But I could see everything. The way she looked at him. The way he looked at her. It was the same way we used to look at each other. My stomach twisted into knots. My chest felt tight. I wanted to march over there. I wanted to demand an explanation. I wanted to flip the table and scream. But I did not. Instead, I pulled out my phone. I started recording. I needed proof. Proof that this was real. Proof that I was not imagining things. Proof that the woman I loved was betraying me. I watched as Daniel reached across the table and brushed a strand of hair from Margaret's face. She smiled. That smile. The same smile she gave me when I did something sweet. He said something that made her laugh. A loud, genuine laugh. The kind of laugh that came from deep in her belly. Then he pulled out a small box. My heart stopped. Was he proposing? No. It was not a ring box. It was a jewelry box. He opened it. Inside was a necklace. A delicate gold necklace with a small pendant. Margaret gasped. She put her hand over her mouth. Daniel stood up and walked around the table. He clasped the necklace around her neck. She touched it gently, admiring it. Then she stood up and hugged him. Not a friendly hug. A long, tight, intimate hug. And then they kissed. Right there in the middle of the restaurant. A slow, passionate kiss. I felt like I was going to be sick. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. But I kept recording. I recorded everything. The kiss lasted at least 10 seconds. When they finally pulled apart, they sat back down. Margaret was glowing. She looked happier than I had seen her in months. Daniel was grinning like he had just won the lottery. I stood there for another 5 minutes. Just watching. Just recording. Just trying to process what was happening. Finally, I could not take it anymore. I turned and walked out. The hostess called after me. Sir, do you still need a table? I did not respond. I just kept walking. I walked for blocks. I did not know where I was going. I just needed to move. I needed to breathe. I needed to think. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Margaret. Running a bit late. Be there soon. Love. You. I stared at the message. Love you. She had the audacity to say love you while she was sitting in that restaurant with another man. I did not reply. I just kept walking. Eventually, I found myself in Central Park. I sat down on a bench. I watched couples walk by, holding hands, laughing, being in love, or at least pretending to be. How many of them were lying? How many of them were cheating? How many of them were living double lives? My phone buzzed again. Another text from Margaret. Where are you? I'm at the restaurant. I looked at the time. It was 7:50. So she had left Daniel and now she was pretending to meet me? Was she going to act like nothing happened? Was she going to sit across from me and smile and pretend she had not just been kissing another man? I felt rage bubbling up inside me. But then I stopped myself. I took a deep breath. And I made a decision. I was not going to confront her. Not yet. Because if I confronted her now, she would just deny it. She would make up some excuse. She would say Daniel was just a friend. She would say the kiss meant nothing. She would gaslight me into thinking I was overreacting. No. I was going to be smart about this. I was going to play the long game. I texted her back. Sorry. Emergency at work. Have to cancel. Rain check? She replied immediately. What? Are you serious? I replied. Yeah. I'm really sorry. I'll make it up to you. She sent back an angry emoji. Then she wrote. Fine. Whatever. I put my phone away. I sat on that bench for another hour. Just thinking. Just planning. Because Margaret had no idea who she was messing with. She thought I was just Robert Morgan. The guy who made $60,000 a year. The guy who lived in a small Brooklyn apartment. The guy who took the subway and ate cheap takeout. But I was not that guy. Not really. I was Robert Ashford. And I had resources she could not even imagine. I pulled out my phone and made a call. The phone rang twice before someone picked up. Ashford Investigations. How can I help you? I want a full background check on someone. Name? Daniel Crawford. And I want surveillance on another person. Name? Margaret Hayes. How extensive? Everything. Where she goes. Who she meets. What she does. I want a full report. Understood, Mr. Ashford. We'll start immediately. I hung up. Then I called my father. He answered on the first ring. Robert. What's wrong? He always knew when something was wrong. I need your advice. I told him everything. About Margaret. About Daniel. About what I saw. My father listened quietly. When I finished, he was silent for a long moment. Then he said, Son, I'm sorry. I know. What are you going to do? I'm going to find out the truth. And then I'm going to make sure she regrets ever lying to me. My father chuckled. That's my boy. I smiled. For the first time that night, I smiled. Because I was not heartbroken. Not really. I was angry. And anger is so much more useful than sadness. I stood up from the bench. I straightened my tie. I took one last deep breath. And then I started walking home. Because the game had just begun. The next few days were torture. Not because I was sad. But because I had to pretend everything was normal. I had to pretend I did not know. I had to pretend I still trusted her. I had to look Margaret in the eye and smile while knowing she was lying to me. She came over to my apartment the night after Valentine's Day. She acted upset that I had canceled our dinner. She said she had been looking forward to it all week. She said she had worn her best dress. She said she had been disappointed. I apologized. I said work had been crazy. I said I would make it up to her. She kissed me. And I kissed her back. Even though I knew those same lips had kissed Daniel less than 24 hours earlier. It made me sick. But I did not let it show. We ordered Chinese food. We watched a movie. She fell asleep on my couch with her head on my shoulder. I stared at her while she slept. I studied her face. I tried to understand. What had I done wrong? Had I not been attentive enough? Had I not loved her enough? Had I not been enough? Or was it something else? Was it because I was not rich? Was it because I could not give her the luxury lifestyle she wanted? Was it because Daniel had more to offer? I did not know. And that not knowing was eating me alive. The next morning, Margaret left early for work. She kissed me goodbye. She said she loved me. I said it back. But the words felt hollow. As soon as she left, I called Ashford Investigations. They already had preliminary information. Daniel Crawford was 32 years old. He worked as a senior marketing director at the same agency as Margaret. He made $120,000 a year. He drove a BMW. He lived in a nice apartment in the Upper East Side. He was not married. No kids. But here is the interesting part. He had a history. 3 years ago, he had been engaged. His fiancée broke it off 2 months before the wedding. The reason? She found out he had been cheating on her with a coworker. So Daniel had a pattern. He was a liar. A cheater. A manipulator. And Margaret had fallen for it. Or maybe she knew. Maybe she did not care. Maybe she was just using him. I needed to know more. The investigator told me they had started surveillance on Margaret. They had already tailed her for 2 days. And what they found confirmed my worst fears. Margaret had been meeting Daniel almost every day. During lunch breaks. After work. Sometimes even in the mornings before work. They went to cafes. They went to parks. They went to his apartment. And she stayed there for hours. The investigator sent me photos. Photos of them holding hands. Photos of them kissing. Photos of them walking into his building together. Photos of them leaving together the next morning. That last one hurt the most. Because it meant she had lied to me. All those nights she said she was working late. All those nights she said she was staying at her own apartment because she was too tired to come over. She had been with him. I felt like I was drowning. Like I could not breathe. Like the walls were closing in. But I could not break. Not yet. I had to stay strong. I had to stay focused. I had to finish this. That evening, Margaret texted me. Hey babe. Can't come over tonight. Big presentation tomorrow. Need to prepare. I knew it was a lie, but I played along. No problem. Good luck with the presentation. You'll do great. She replied with a heart emoji. I stared at that emoji for a long time. How could she send me a heart when she was betraying me? How could she act like she loved me when she was sleeping with someone else? How could she be so cruel? I needed a distraction. I needed to clear my head. So I went to the gym. I ran on the treadmill for an hour. I lifted weights until my muscles screamed. I punched the heavy bag until my knuckles were raw. But no matter how hard I pushed myself, I could not stop thinking about her. About them. About what they were doing right now. I went home. I took a cold shower. I sat on my couch in the dark. And I let myself feel it. All the pain. All the anger. All the betrayal. I let it wash over me. I let it consume me. Because I knew that once I let it out, I could move forward. I could focus on my plan. And my plan was already taking shape. A few days later, I got another call from the investigator. Mr. Ashford, we found something interesting. What? Margaret has a best friend named Melissa Turner. I know Melissa. Well, Melissa has been trying to reach Margaret for the past week. She's called her 15 times. Margaret hasn't answered once. Why is that significant? Because according to our research, Margaret and Melissa have been best friends since college. They talk every day. Or at least they used to. But for the past 3 weeks, Margaret has been avoiding her. Interesting. We also found out that Melissa works at a nonprofit downtown. She's single. And according to her social media, she's mentioned you a few times. Me? Yes. She's posted photos from group hangouts where you were present. She's commented on Margaret's photos of you two together. Always positive comments. Things like you two are perfect together or so happy for you. So Melissa is a fan. It seems that way. I thought about this for a moment. Then an idea started forming. A brilliant, terrible, perfect idea. Do me a favor. Anything, Mr. Ashford. Find out everything you can about Melissa Turner. Consider it done. I hung up. And for the first time, since Valentine's Day, I felt a flicker of hope. Not hope that Margaret and I would work things out. That ship had sailed. But hope that I could turn this situation around. Hope that I could make Margaret feel the same pain she had caused me. Hope that I could show her exactly what she had lost. Because Melissa was about to become a very important part of my plan. 3 days later, I met Melissa for coffee. I had texted her out of the blue. Hey Melissa, it's Robert. Do you have time to grab coffee this week? I need some advice. She replied within minutes. Of course. Is everything okay? I replied. Yeah, just need a friend's perspective on something. She suggested a cafe near her office. I arrived first and ordered 2 coffees. When Melissa walked in, she looked concerned. She was pretty. Not in the same way Margaret was. Margaret was polished and put together. Melissa was more natural. She wore minimal makeup. Her brown hair was loose around her shoulders. She wore jeans and a simple sweater. She smiled when she saw me. But the smile did not reach her eyes. She could tell something was wrong. Robert, what's going on? Is it Margaret? I nodded slowly. Melissa sat down across from me. Talk to me. I took a deep breath. Then I pulled out my phone. I showed her the video I had recorded on Valentine's Day. I watched Melissa's face as she watched the screen. Her expression changed from confusion to shock to horror. Her hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God. I put the phone away. That was supposed to be our anniversary dinner. I was going to propose. Melissa's eyes filled with tears. Robert, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I know. She reached across the table and grabbed my hand. Have you confronted her? Not yet. Why not? Because I want to understand first. I want to know why. I want to know how long this has been going on. Melissa nodded. She pulled her hand back and wiped her eyes. I've been trying to reach her for weeks. She won't answer my calls. She won't respond to my texts. I thought maybe I did something wrong. But now I see. She's avoiding me because she knows I'd see through her lies. Exactly. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Melissa spoke again. Robert, you deserve so much better. Margaret is my best friend. Or at least she was. But what she's doing to you is unforgivable. I appreciate that. What are you going to do? I'm still figuring that out. But I need your help. Anything. I need you to keep this between us. Don't tell Margaret we met. Don't tell her that I know. Okay. And I need you to trust me. Because what I'm about to do might seem extreme. But I promise you, it's for the best. Melissa looked confused. What are you planning? I smiled. You'll see. Over the next 2 weeks, Melissa and I spent a lot of time together. At first, it was just coffee. We talked about Margaret. About Daniel. About how betrayed we both felt. Melissa told me stories about Margaret that I never knew. How Margaret had always been ambitious. How she always wanted more. More money. More status. More attention. Melissa said she had always worried that Margaret's ambition would get in the way of her happiness. And now it had. But as Melissa and I spent more time together, something unexpected happened. We became friends. Real friends. We laughed together. We joked together. We talked about life and dreams and fears. And I started to realize something. Melissa was everything Margaret was not. She was kind. She was genuine. She was selfless. She worked at a nonprofit helping underprivileged kids. She did not care about money or status. She cared about making a difference. And the more I got to know her, the more I liked her. One evening, we were walking through Central Park. It was late March. The weather was finally warming up. The trees were starting to bloom. Melissa stopped by a bench and sat down. I sat next to her. Robert, can I ask you something? Of course. Why are you really spending time with me? What do you mean? I mean, I know you're hurting. I know you're angry. But it feels like there's something else. Something you're not telling me. I looked at her. Her green eyes were searching mine. She was too smart. She had figured it out. You're right. There is something else. I took a deep breath. Melissa, I like you. As more than a friend. She blinked. Robert. I know the timing is terrible. I know this is complicated. But I can't help how I feel. These past 2 weeks with you have been the best 2 weeks I've had in months. You make me laugh. You make me feel like myself again. You make me forget about all the pain. Melissa was silent. I could not read her expression. If you don't feel the same way, I understand. We can just stay friends. I won't bring it up again. She shook her head. No. It's not that. Then what? She looked down at her hands. I've liked you since the first time I met you. 2 years ago at that party. I thought you were kind and funny and smart. But you were with Margaret. And Margaret is my best friend. So I buried those feelings. But now? Now everything is different. I reached over and took her hand. Melissa, I'm going to ask you something. And I need you to say yes. What? I got down on one knee. Right there in Central Park. Melissa's eyes went wide. Robert. What are you doing? I pulled out the ring. The same ring I had bought for Margaret. Melissa Turner. Will you marry me? Melissa stared at me. She looked at the ring. She looked at me. She shook her head. You're crazy. I know. This is insane. I know. We've only been close for 2 weeks. I know. But you don't love me. Not yet. But I think I could. And I think you could too. Melissa was crying now. Why are you really doing this? Because I want Margaret to know what it feels like. To lose something important. To be replaced. To realize she made the biggest mistake of her life. So this is revenge? Partially. But it's also because I genuinely care about you. And I think we could be happy together. Melissa wiped her tears. She looked at the ring again. Then she looked at me. And she smiled. Yes. What? Yes, I'll marry you. I stood up and slipped the ring on her finger. It fit perfectly. And then Melissa kissed me. It was soft and sweet and genuine. Nothing like the performative kisses I had seen between Margaret and Daniel. This felt real. When we pulled apart, Melissa laughed. Margaret is going to kill us. I grinned. I'm counting on it. 2 weeks later, everything came together. Margaret was throwing herself a birthday party. She had rented out a small event space in Manhattan. She invited all her friends. All her coworkers. Including Daniel. And, including me. When I got the invitation, I almost laughed. She had no idea what was coming. I texted her back. Wouldn't miss it for the world. She replied with a smiley face. I showed Melissa the invitation. We were sitting in my apartment. She was wearing the engagement ring. We had decided to keep the engagement secret until the party. We wanted the reveal to be public. We wanted it to hurt. Are you sure you want to do this? Melissa asked. I'm sure. Are you? Melissa took a deep breath. She's been my best friend for 8 years. But after what she did to you, after how she's been ignoring me for weeks. Yes. I'm sure. I kissed her forehead. Then let's do this. The night of the party, Melissa and I arrived separately. I got there first. The event space was decorated with balloons and streamers. There was a DJ. There was a bar. There was a table full of food. Margaret had gone all out. I wondered if Daniel had helped pay for it. When I walked in, Margaret ran up to me. She threw her arms around my neck. Robert, you made it. I hugged her back. Of course. Happy birthday. She was wearing a tight red dress. Her hair was perfectly styled. Her makeup was flawless. She looked beautiful. But I felt nothing. Come on, let me introduce you to some people. She grabbed my hand and dragged me across the room. She introduced me to her coworkers, to her friends from college, to her parents. I smiled and shook hands and made small talk. And then I saw him, Daniel. He was standing by the bar with a drink in his hand. He was talking to a group of people, laughing, acting like he owned the place. When he saw me, his smile faltered. Just for a second. But then he recovered. He walked over. Robert. Good to see you, man. He extended his hand. I shook it. Firmly. Maybe a little too firmly. Daniel. How's work? Busy. You know how it is. Yeah. I do. We stood there in awkward silence. Then Margaret appeared. She looped her arm through Daniel's. Have you two met? Daniel is my colleague. We've met. I said flatly. Margaret did not notice the tension. Or maybe she did and just did not care. Great. Well, I need to go say hi to some other guests. You two chat. She walked away. Daniel and I stood there, staring at each other. So, Daniel said. You and Margaret. 2 years. Right? That's right. She's great. She is. He took a sip of his drink. You're a lucky guy. I smiled. I used to think so. Daniel's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? I shrugged. You'll find out soon enough. Before Daniel could respond, the lights dimmed. The DJ stopped the music. Margaret stepped onto a small stage at the front of the room. Everyone, thank you so much for coming. The crowd applauded. This year has been incredible. I've grown so much professionally. I've made amazing friends. And I've fallen in love. My heart started pounding. Margaret looked directly at Daniel. Daniel, can you come up here? The crowd murmured. Daniel looked surprised. But he walked up to the stage. Margaret took his hand. I want everyone to know. Daniel and I are together. The room erupted. Some people gasped. Some people clapped. Margaret's parents looked confused. I stood in the back of the room. Perfectly calm. Perfectly still. Margaret continued. I know this might come as a shock to some of you. But I've never been happier. Daniel is everything I've ever wanted. She kissed him. Right there on stage. The crowd cheered. And then I started walking. I walked slowly toward the stage. People moved out of my way. The room started to quiet. Margaret noticed me. Her face went pale. Robert. I did not say anything. I just pulled out my phone. I connected it to the DJ's speaker system. And I played the video. The video from Valentine's Day. The video of Margaret and Daniel at Le Bernardin. Holding hands. Kissing. Being intimate. The entire room watched in silence. When the video ended, I looked up at Margaret. Happy birthday. Margaret's hands were shaking. Robert, I can explain. There's nothing to explain. I saw everything. I've known since Valentine's Day. Daniel stepped forward. Look, man. I don't want any trouble. I laughed. Trouble? No. There's no trouble. Because honestly, you two deserve each other. Margaret started crying. Please. Robert. I love you. I made a mistake. No. You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. You chose to lie. You chose to cheat. You chose him. And now you have to live with that choice. I turned to leave. But then I stopped. Oh. And one more thing. I pulled Melissa out of the crowd. She had arrived during Margaret's speech. I took her hand. Everyone, I'd like you to meet my fiancée. Melissa held up her hand. The ring sparkled under the lights. The room exploded. People were shouting. Margaret screamed. What? Melissa? Melissa looked at her former best friend. I'm sorry, Margaret. But you lost the right to my loyalty when you betrayed Robert. Margaret tried to step off the stage. But she was shaking so badly, she stumbled. Daniel caught her. But she pushed him away. Get off me. She looked at me with wild eyes. You planned this. You planned all of this. I smiled. I did. You're a monster. No. I'm just someone who doesn't let people walk all over him. And with that, Melissa and I walked out, hand in hand, leaving Margaret standing on that stage. Humiliated. Exposed. Alone. The next few weeks were chaos. News of what happened at Margaret's party spread like wildfire. Everyone in her social circle was talking about it. Her co-workers. Her friends. Even her family. Margaret tried to do damage control. She posted on social media. She wrote a long message about how I had manipulated her. How I had tricked her. How I was vindictive and cruel. But no one believed her. Because I had proof. I had the video. I had the timeline. I had the investigators' reports. And I released all of it. Not publicly. But privately to the people who mattered. To her friends. To her family. To her boss. I made sure everyone knew the truth. Margaret had been the one lying. Margaret had been the one cheating. Margaret had been the one manipulating. And slowly, people turned on her. Her friends stopped inviting her out. Her co-workers stopped talking to her. Even her parents were disappointed. And Daniel abandoned her. Turns out, he was only interested in Margaret when she was successful and confident. But now that she was damaged goods, he wanted nothing to do with her. He broke up with her 2 weeks after the party. He said it was too much drama. He said he needed space. He said it was not working out. Margaret was devastated. She tried to reach out to me. She called. She texted. She even showed up at my apartment. But I did not answer. I did not let her in. I was done. Melissa and I, on the other hand, were thriving. We moved in together. I told her the truth about who I really was. About my family. About my wealth. About everything. She was shocked at first. But then she laughed. So, you're telling me I'm engaged to a billionaire? Technically, my father is the billionaire. I'm just the heir. Melissa punched my arm playfully. You should have told me sooner. I could have asked for a bigger ring. I kissed her. The ring is perfect. Just like you. We started planning our wedding. Nothing too big. Just close friends and family. I introduced Melissa to my father. He loved her immediately. She's the one. He told me. I know. I replied. And for the first time in months, I felt genuinely happy. But of course, Margaret was not done. 3 months after the party, she showed up at one of Melissa's nonprofit events. It was a fundraiser for underprivileged kids. Melissa was giving a speech on stage. I was sitting in the front row. And then I saw her. Margaret. She was standing in the back of the room. She looked terrible. Her hair was messy. Her clothes were wrinkled. She had dark circles under her eyes. She looked like she had not slept in days. When Melissa finished her speech, Margaret started walking toward the stage. People noticed. People started whispering. I stood up. I was ready to intervene. But Melissa saw her first. Margaret. What are you doing here? Margaret's voice was shaking. I need to talk to you. This is not the time or place. Please. Just 5 minutes. Melissa looked at me. I nodded. We stepped outside. The 3 of us. Margaret started crying immediately. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I ruined everything. I lost everything. My job. My friends. My family. Daniel. And I deserve it. I know I do. But please. Please forgive me. Melissa crossed her arms. You ignored me for months. You lied to Robert. You cheated on him. And now you want forgiveness? Yes. Melissa shook her head. I can't. What you did was unforgivable. You broke his heart. You broke our friendship. And you did it all for what? For Daniel? Look how that turned out. Margaret sobbed harder. I know. I was stupid. I was selfish. I thought I wanted something better. But Robert was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I threw it away. I finally spoke. Margaret. She looked at me with red, swollen eyes. I don't hate you. I did for a while. But I don't anymore. What you did hurt me. But it also taught me something. It taught me what I really deserve. And it's not you. It's someone who values me. Someone who respects me. Someone who would never betray me. And I found that person. I put my arm around Melissa. So thank you. Thank you for showing me the truth. Thank you for setting me free. And thank you for making room for someone who actually deserves my love. Margaret stared at us. She opened her mouth to say something. But no words came out. She just turned and walked away. And that was the last time I ever saw her. Melissa and I got married 6 months later. It was a small ceremony. Just our closest friends and family. My father walked Melissa down the aisle. Her parents were there, crying happy tears. When I saw Melissa in her wedding dress, I knew I had made the right choice. She was beautiful. She was kind. She was everything I had ever wanted. And more importantly, she loved me. Not for my money. Not for my status. But for me. During our vows, I told her the truth. I told her that meeting her was the best thing that ever came out of my worst moment. I told her that I would spend the rest of my life making her happy. And I meant every word. A year later, Melissa and I were sitting on our couch. We had just moved into a beautiful penthouse in Manhattan. My father had insisted. He said it was a wedding gift. Melissa was reading a book. I was scrolling through my phone. And then I saw it. A news article. The headline read, "Former Marketing Coordinator Margaret Hayes, arrested for fraud." I clicked on it. Apparently, Margaret had been involved in a scheme at her old job. She had been embezzling money. Small amounts at first. But over time, it added up. The company had finally caught her. She was facing up to 5 years in prison. I showed the article to Melissa. She read it and sighed. I almost feel bad for her. Almost. I put my phone down. She made her choices. Now she has to live with the consequences. Melissa nodded. She leaned her head on my shoulder. Do you ever think about what would have happened if she had not cheated? Sometimes. And I'm glad she did. Because if she had not, I would not have you. Melissa smiled. You're so cheesy. I know. But you love it. I do. We sat there in comfortable silence. And I realized something. I had won. Not because I got revenge. Not because Margaret's life fell apart. But because I found someone who truly loved me. Someone who made me better. Someone who made me happy. Margaret thought she was upgrading when she chose Daniel. But in reality, she downgraded. She lost someone who would have given her the world. And I gained someone who made my world complete. As I sat there with Melissa in my arms, I could not help but smile. Because sometimes, the best revenge is not hurting the person who hurt you. It is moving on and being happier without them. And that is exactly what I did.